Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 58. Author Branding with Phil Pallen.
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
On this week's show, I talked to Phil Pallen, who is an expert on branding. This is what he does as his day job. He helps people to create their own personal brands. I saw him speak at New Media Europe and was very impressed, so I thought I'd have him on the show. So now over to the interview. Hi Phil, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Why does branding matter to authors?
Well, it matters to authors. It matters to authors is kind of an interesting, just a saying in terms of grouping a lot of different expertises and professionals together. You know, like it's different than saying dentists or lawyers, which, by the way, are also people that need brands. But authors are experts on a particular subject. They already know that because they've taken the time to either self-publish or get a publisher to publish a book that explores their expertise. The idea is that other people want your expertise, so they buy your book. So in this case, where we're dealing with experts in a variety of different industries, a brand is more important than ever, because now with the democratization of media, even 10, 20, 30 years ago, we couldn't just be an author if we felt like it. Now we can self-publish and we can create podcasts. We can be photographers on Instagram. We can be all of these things because media has become democratized. Now more than ever, you need a brand to stand out from the noise and the mediocrity. So there's more people doing it. That's the bad news. It's harder to stand out. But the good news is not a lot of people are doing it well. So that's your window of opportunity to build a brand that people will remember so that they'll pay attention to you and spend their very limited resource, which is time and attention span, on you instead of someone else.
So, going slightly off the script I had for this, how would you describe what branding is to people who are thinking, well, that's a fairly nebulous term, what a brand is?
Yeah, it is. It is. And this term has evolved quite a lot in a short amount of time. And a lot of people define this differently. My definition is fairly unique to what else you'll hear out there. I work almost exclusively with personal brands. So I don't do a lot of big corporate, fancy, big budget work because I don't find it interesting. I like to work with individuals. And I've been able in the last few years to be a part of this movement where through everyone being able to build something to show for what they love, they need to have a presence online. So my definition of branding is establishing consistency between the in-person you, the in-person experience, and the online version we create to show for that. So not, fabricating something that's not authentic to who you are, but building something online that you're proud of, building something online that accurately communicates who you are in an enticing way, in a way that's going to make people want to have a conversation with you, want to work with you. That's how I define branding now, is juggling the two versions of us, the in-person and the online versions. If those can be consistent, that is, the foundation for successful and effective branding.
Okay. So for an author who's looking to start to think about their personal branding, what do they do to begin with? What should they think of in the first case?
Yeah, well, people are often quick to go, oh, I want to promote my book. I want to promote my website. I want to promote my podcast. And that's great. But that's also sometimes like taking a house to market. You're really excited to sell it and make some money. But if the house isn't built properly, if it's not staged with the help of an expert, if it doesn't have a roof because you haven't finished building it properly, then you're not going to get any value for it. You're going to get a fraction of what you deserve. So I often use that analogy because that makes sense to people. When it comes to branding, sometimes we can do some renovations around the house. We can update your website. We can ensure that you've got a strong brand identity and you've got strong photography to show people for who you are. With those small changes, when you take it to market, when you implement your strategy to promote your brand, at that point, if you've built it properly and you positioned yourself in a way that's going to help you in the long run, then that's when you're actually going to start to see a return for time and money spent on making sure people find you. But if it's not built properly, you're spending money on sending people to you on a brand that's half built. So you're spending money, but it's not going to turn into anything.
In terms of like the very first thing that people should think of when they're trying to create, say, an author brand, is that photography, or is it just thinking about who they are, or some sort of introspection?
Yeah, it's positioning their brand. It's positioning them not just for something they love, which on its own I call a hobby, but taking something you love and pairing that with something others need. That is the formula for successful positioning of your brand. So not just reflecting on, okay, this is something I'd love to do. If I could do this for a job forever, I'd be happy. That's all fine and dandy, but you have to make sure it's something people need. If it's not something people need, they're not going to hire you. You're going to invest in advertising and marketing and social media and all of these things that we do to make sure people find us. But when they find you, they're not going to be interested if you haven't done the research to know, here's a market where I'm needed. Here's where I can bring something of value to the masses. Once you've put some thought and time and called upon some experts to know, okay, that's where there's a need for me, only at that point should you build something to show for it. A lot of times, too, people aren't just building brands from scratch. They're also taking existing brands, first or second or third versions of their idea. And a lot of times I get hired in that case where they've proven the concept, they know what they're doing, but they need a little bit of help to visually show that before they go to promote. So it kind of works in both ways. People starting with an idea or taking an existing idea and giving it a little repositioning.
Okay. So how important is something like showing personality in terms of building a brand?
Yeah, personality is one of your competitive advantages, whether it's a big, bold personality, A-type, or simply more subtle or more caring or funny. Personality is, along with content, the two factors that make up what I would call your content to personality ratio, which is essentially the two factors that affect how we perceive you and why we take the time to perceive you, why we spend time on you and over someone else. If you look at any successful TV presenters or public personalities or politicians, people in the media, where they've done a good job of simulating a relationship with us. Chances are we've never met them in real life, but through the content they create and the mediums that are broadcasted that show them, TV or movies, we feel like we know them. All of these people, including very famous actors, all the way up to people, brand new entrepreneurs starting with an idea. Again, consistency between online and in person, we're made up of two factors, content and personality. And neither one can exist on their own. So if you're just producing content without any degree of personality, it's a missed opportunity. Again, you don't have to be crazy and wild and obnoxious. You just need to be self-aware because, yes, you've probably got a product and you've probably got a service, but you are also part of what's being offered. And you need to be self-aware to know, here's my personality. Here's where people, this is what people want from me. Pair that into everything you're doing so that what you're doing is unique.
Have you got any kind of examples of how people would create, say, a website based on their personality type? Hopefully not giving away any corporate or personal details of people you work with, but say like somebody who's on one extreme and maybe somebody who's on the other extreme.
Yeah, well, I can even, what people might find useful listening is to give them a few tips on exactly how to implement. I mean, we get it, implement personality, but how do you actually take the steps to do that? This is what I've done with clients in the past, and it's one of those consistent elements you'll see on all the sites that I create. For example, on the homepage of your website, we often include what I would call your brand sentence. And this is almost word for word a sentence that I take from when I do a brand audit or that initial meeting to figure out what it is we're going to do. I'll take a sentence that they say so conversationally, to describe who they are and what they do. When you sit in front of a computer and type it out, come up with that sentence on your own, that's tough and it's challenging. It's a little bit nerve-wracking for many people. Yet when you have a conversation with someone, and I do this exercise a lot at conferences and such, when you have to explain to someone what it is you do in one sentence, maybe two sentences, ideally one, it's pretty amazing how you can sum up what you do in just a sentence or two. And with some guidance, that sentence will be even better. But many times, I mean, on almost all the sites you'll see that I create, we have that brand sentence right on the homepage. So people understand, okay, boom, this is who I am. This is why people should care. So that's one tip on incorporating personality into your brand. I also tell people when they're writing their social media bios to incorporate personality. Your Twitter bio, first sentence, who are you? Why should we care? Second sentence, give us a flavor of your personality. So there's one more effort, one more step that we take to try to make sure people remember us. That's key online, because if we don't grab them in 3 seconds or less, we've lost them forever.
So in terms of photography, which I think we all agree is quite important, certainly for website design and other things, what should people look for in terms of getting a photographer to get promotional photographs done?
Yeah, I'm usually pretty picky when it comes to picking photographers for projects because I rely so much on what a photographer is able to do with my client. It affects everything, websites, social profiles, everything we go to design moving forward typically incorporates the photography that clients will get from a photographer. So we don't want headshots. We don't want boring images. I want to see you in your environment. So, where are you happy? Where are you working? What are you doing? How can we see your brand in a photo rather than see a boring headshot against a white background and then, have to rely on other things to understand who you are? I mean, the goal is let's see you in your environment and be able to get that from the photo, because people have short attention spans. So they're not going to read a big, long paragraph about your credentials and about what you do and about how you won awards in high school and about all these things that no one cares about. Instead, use every opportunity, every visual and content-driven opportunity to grab people's attention. Keep it short. It increases the likelihood that they'll read it. And keep it beautiful. Keep your visuals nice and consistent and on brand so that it reinforces the value that someone is going to get from buying your product or hiring you to deliver something. It's amazing how much control we have over creating a positive first impression, much like a luxury brand does after spending millions of dollars. We don't have to spend all that money. Everything is online. It's out there for us to learn. We just need to be smart, and we need to make sure everything is consistent to reinforce that value.
Okay, so let's say we've got an author who's got like 3 photographers he could choose from in his local area, or her local area. I shouldn't be sexist in my examples. What kind of things should they be asking the photographers, or is there an attitudinal thing they should be looking for, or is it a case they should just tell them, I want this?
Yeah, if it's a photographer that does headshots, no, we don't want that guy because he takes people and or girl, I just made the same mistake, takes that individual and photographs him in exactly the same way. We don't want that. That's so boring. No headshots. I want landscape. Some keywords that I suggest using to find a good photographer: lifestyle. Wedding photographers are often excellent at making people look beautiful, using natural light, being able to shoot in environments. So wedding photographers, editorial photographers, lifestyle photographers, or portrait photographers. Those are typically the best keywords that I've used to find good photographers that can deliver exactly what it is we need, which is photographing personality.
So it's more of a case of maybe going away from the traditional sort of corporate image photographer then, really, I suppose.
Yes, definitely moving away from that. Yeah, definitely.
In terms of other professionals apart from photographers that maybe people should think of hiring for branding purposes, I mean, do they need a copywriter or anybody like that, your opinion?
Yeah. What's different than the traditional model of this is you'd go to an agency that would have all of these, in-house, but it would cost a fortune, right? If you're, that's why the agency model really only appeals to corporate opportunities. What I've done since the very beginning, I've never worked for an agency. What I've done from the beginning is try and keep things lean. So I have one business partner, and she's a content strategist and a copywriter. I am a brand strategist and handle the visual side of things. So between the two of us, we can almost, we can do things from start to finish. I've got, creative contractors that I rely on, photographers, graphic designers that I work with. I used to do it all myself, but that was not sustainable. So I've got a team of graphic designers actually based in Europe that work on all of our projects. So my suggestion would be to find someone that's not going to charge you an absolute fortune, but still has proven success that they can do a great job. You don't need to hire an agency. You probably can't afford to hire an agency. And if you can, you shouldn't be spending that much money on this because you don't need to. Finding someone that can offer basically everything under one roof, so you're not having to hire a lot of individual contractors, that's a challenge, especially in the digital world, to have them work all symbiotically. It takes a lot of time if you become project manager as well. Finding someone that can help you in all of those areas and has done so successfully in the past, that's my best recommendation.
Okay, so what would you say are the benefits of, say, hiring a branding consultant to work on your brand as opposed to trying to do it all yourself?
Yeah, well, it's like building a house on your own. If you went to school for it and you know how to do it properly so that it won't crash and burn, fantastic. But if you're doing this, you can become self-educated in it. You can read lots of books. You can't really go to school and get a degree in it unless you want to go to design school, So you can become self-educated in it. And I mean, I've had people that have gone and done that. But I'll say the best compliment someone ever gave me, it wasn't, Phil, you're amazing. Phil, you're awesome. It was, Phil, I spent 2 hours with you and learned in 2 hours from you what it would have taken me 75 hours to learn on my own. And that is the perk of working with any expert. Authors will know this, right? Think about how much time that goes into writing and researching a book, right? It's the same thing. You can read a book and you can learn about something, but you're not going to be as knowledgeable as the author who's taken the time to prepare and curate that content. It's the same thing. Hire an expert will get you to your goal faster if they're good. And while you have to pay for it, ultimately it will return for you in the long run because what you're putting out there is much stronger with the help of an expert.
If people are interested in finding out more about Phil Pallen and his exciting world of branding, how do they find out about you?
Yeah, sure. I try and keep my website updated with recent examples of rebrands that we've done, as well as exactly how people can work with us and learn a little bit more about my world and what I do. Travel's a really big part of what inspires me, so I'm pretty much constantly on the move, and I kind of document that on my social media and have some fun on that front. But yeah, we're pretty easy to find. I'm all over the internet, so you can definitely find me on Twitter. I've got a podcast called No Filter, which I share interesting conversations with people loosely related to the world of branding and social media. And yeah, my website is a pretty good central place to find everything you need, which is philpallen.co. And I'm on Twitter, Snapchat, and Pinterest are my priority platforms. So I'd love to engage with you on those platforms.
Well, are you on Snapchat? Just of interest. I'll add you on it.
Yeah, I'm on Snapchat. I love Snapchat because it's quick, it's easy, and it's a fun, experimental way to tell your story. So I think the best Snapchats come when you think less about what you're going to post. So I enjoy Snapchat a lot. And it's particularly with being able to travel, it's fun to be able to share that adventure with others on that platform.
I mean, I generally find with Snapchat and, well, to some extent, all of the visual platforms, it really helps to be traveling or doing interesting things. Because nobody really wants to see you going to the Quickie Mart and buying a packet of toilet paper or something and then going home, which some people fill up their Snapchat feeds with. So
Exactly.
It helps to have an interesting life, I think, on some of those more visual platforms. So it's been very nice talking to you today, Phil. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. It's been really fun to chat with you, and thank you again for having me on the show.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.